The more things change, the more they stay the same. New advances in smart electronics are transforming the dynamics of warfare on a fundamental level. Faster processing speeds and smaller dimensions make weapons easier to deploy and empirically more efficient. Now, the leading military powers are racing to develop robotic weapon systems that can operate autonomously. The advantages of such weapons are plenty, but the anxieties are just as important to consider. Although the research is still years away, opposing lobbying groups at the United Nations are currently either trying to push forward for such weapon systems or preemptively set up a treaty banning it. Either way, the age of autonomous and robotic warfare is coming faster than societies can comprehend. So what does this mean, and what implications will it have on a global level? I'm your host Shirvan, and welcome to Caspian Report. There is an arms race in the world, one that focuses on autonomous killer machines. These devices do not resemble Terminators or other fictional humanoid robots, nor do they resemble the robots being developed by Boston Dynamics, which are certainly impressive from an engineering point of view, but still too difficult to construct and move. Humanoid robots are just not applicable on the battlefield, at least not yet. Instead, military thinkers are looking to develop lethal AI algorithms to support autonomy, and then install such coding into existing weapons. The process needs to be cost-effective, so governments would not need to replace entire fleets. Aerial drones are a prime example of this. Nearly every military drone that operates in the skies in current battlefields transmits video and data to human operators in control towers, who then analyze the target and determine whether to fire. So, while aerial drones hovering over hostile territory can search and find targets independently, the decision to engage necessitates a human. This process usually requires one human per machine in the air, which means that you can only have so many drones in the sky at once. Clearly, there is room for greater efficiency. Lethal autonomous weapon systems, ironically dubbed as LAWs, is a type of military application that removes the human in the loop, allowing for AI algorithms to decide whom to target and whom to destroy independently. A line of code would have the ultimate say over the lives of human beings. It's the stuff of science fiction, but it's also a holy grail in modern military technologies, and it's likely to be deployed in real battlefields in the coming decade. A weapon equipped with a lethal AI algorithm could have a list of people on which to use deadly force and then destroy the target when the identity is confirmed by, let's say, 99% accuracy. Depending on the adversary, the accuracy rate could be lowered to increase damage output. Such a lethal AI algorithm could also be fed combat footages to train it to predict whether an enemy combatant would open fire and, if so, carry out a preemptive attack. The algorithm could also be trained to fire autonomously in a war zone by assigning specific criteria to hostile combatants. For example, if someone is visually confirmed carrying firearms or wearing unfriendly uniforms. Suffice to say, lethal autonomous weapons would have near-endless configurations, and the technology is coming faster than most people realize. Research in artificial intelligence has advanced by leaps. Facial recognition and object recognition has evolved to the point of becoming remarkably accurate, both of which are essential for the development of lethal AI algorithms. So why do military organizations need lethal autonomous robots anyway? What is the motive? Well, the battlefield has evolved from swords and spears to guns and tanks, and now long-range missiles and aerial drones. Throughout history, the aim has been to minimize the loss of manpower, and the need to lessen the human factor from the warfare synopsis is a cornerstone of every modern military doctrine. Seen in this light, lethal algorithms and autonomous weapon systems are the next step in the evolution of warfare. Employing lethal autonomous weapons would reduce human errors while increasing efficiency. When equipped with proper weapons and programmed to perform specific tasks, drones can be more effective than human operators, especially when deployed for long-time operations with maximum accuracy. Plus, unlike humans, a machine will not get angry or hold a grudge. It will not experience stress and fatigue, leading to confusion and mistakes. The machine will merely follow its code. It is, therefore, not likely to commit a war crime, not unless it is programmed to do so. Nations that adopt autonomous robotic doctrine early on would gain substantial military advantages, at least in the beginning. But once autonomous and robotic warfare goes mainstream, the drawbacks will even out the playing field. Jamming, hacking, and electromagnetic pulses are just some of the weaknesses of an autonomous robotic fleet. To counter such interceptions, a greater emphasis would need to be placed on developing cyber capabilities. Even so, the application of new technologies is sometimes unpredictable. Fully autonomous weapons would make it easier and frankly cheaper to eliminate people. As the technology improves, manufacturing will get easier, faster, and more cost-effective. Autonomous weapons will become more readily available. In the wrong hands, that is a catastrophe waiting to happen. Take commercial drones as an example. They come in all shapes, most are relatively inexpensive, and as the technology improves, the prices are likely to keep dropping. The same principle applies to the mass production of weapons. Fully autonomous weapons would also usher in a host of new strategic, technical, but also moral complications, which is why some scientists are pushing back. Opponents of lethal autonomous weapon systems are lobbying the United Nations to consider a preemptive treaty to ban lethal autonomous weapons. And there are precedents for this. In 1972, the United Nations enacted a ban on the use of biological weapons. In 1992, there was a ban on the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons. These conventions helped to contain weapons of mass destruction and prevented their proliferation. The same legal procedures are now being used to ban lethal autonomous weapons and keep the technology in the realm of science fiction. The details of the treaty are still being negotiated. However, because of the lack of public awareness regarding autonomous weapons, the legal process has been slow. The members of the United Nations have yet to reach a consensus on what makes for an autonomous system. For instance, a Gatling gun system that automatically shoots trespassers could be seen as a lethal autonomous weapon, but its function would be very much like a landmine. Or, as another example, take loitering munitions, a weapon that fits in between cruise missiles and unmanned combat aerial vehicles and yet is capable of autonomous attacks. The point is that the distinction of what makes for an autonomous weapon is yet to be determined at an international level, and this is an issue that needs to be settled for a meaningful political resolution. Additional problems at the United Nations stem from the opposition to a treaty banning autonomous weapons. The United States, the United Kingdom, Israel, South Korea, and Australia are some of the strongest opponents of a UN ban on lethal autonomous weapons, saying that it is too early for a prohibition and that there are humanitarian advantages to explore. While the argument for civilian application is valid, it would be virtually impossible to keep fully autonomous systems exclusively in the domain of civilian life. It is only a matter of time before non-state actors find ways to exploit and use the devices for malicious purposes. Oftentimes, it's easier to ban things before anyone has them than to ban them when they are already in mainstream use. Militaries across the world, however, will not wait for legal resolution. Lethal autonomous weapon systems will likely be employed sooner than the public discussion on morality and ethics takes place. It is only a matter of time before nations will employ fleets of autonomous robots. War is not necessarily part of human nature, but it certainly is a habit. That habit has always shifted according to conditions and culture. The introduction of autonomous and robotic systems is thus an inescapable happening in the evolution of warfare. The question now is, will we fall back on our old habits? I've been your host Shirvan from CaspianReport. If you approve of what we do, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the links in the description box. Thank you for watching, and Sahol.